And we're just gonna wait and give people a chance to log on. Good morning, everyone. We're just gonna wait a few moments and give people a chance to log on as they join us. I'm gonna wait a few moments longer for others to join us. Welcome, everyone. We are excited for spring at Hawk Mountain. All right, we are going to get started. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Hawk Mountain Sanctuary's Discovery Institute series. Today's program is Gardening for Wildlife with Hannah Salvatore, Penn State Berks County Master Gardener, Berks Nature Ambassador, and Hawk Mountain Sanctuary member. Welcome, Hannah.
Hi.
My name is Jamie Dawson. I'm the Director of Education at Hawk Mountain Sanctuary, and thank you so much to everyone in our audience for joining us today. As you may know, Hawk Mountain is the world's very first refuge for birds of prey, and we continue to work hard to be leaders in raptor conservation, science, and education locally and all over the world. Hawk Mountain is a private nonprofit, and membership is the lifeblood of our organization. To all of our members, thank you so very much for your support. And if you're joining us this morning and you're not a member, we hope that you consider becoming one in the future. Hawk Mountain hopes that everyone remains safe and healthy during these times of challenges during the coronavirus. And we are thrilled to offer our local and global community a variety of virtual programming. At any point during today's program, viewers may submit their questions through the Q&A feature on the Zoom platform. We designated time at the end of the program to take some questions from the audience. And we are so thrilled that Hannah is joining us today to share with us her passion and knowledge of gardening practices that support our native wildlife. And before we go further, I'd like to take a moment to share some of Hannah's background experiences with our audience. Hannah retired in 2002 after 40 years in information systems at what is now M&T Bank. She has been a volunteer exhibit guide at the National Aquarium in Baltimore since 2003 and a volunteer docent at the Philadelphia Zoo since 2009. Hannah has been a Penn State Berks County Master Gardener since 2005 and also a volunteer Berks Nature Ambassador since 2020. And also, as I mentioned earlier, Hannah is a Hawk Mountain member. So thank you for supporting Hawk Mountain, Hannah. So Hannah, I'm going to turn it over to you for your presentation. Thank you so much.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen. This is always the scary part.
Yes.
Here we go. Okay, hi, I'm so glad you came here to discover how your garden can help wildlife to survive and thrive. I moved into my house in the year 2000, and when I moved in, it was 1.1 acres of lawn. There were some trees, mostly Douglas firs, who don't belong here and are now subsequently all dying because they get diseases. But I decided I wanted to make my property suitable for wildlife. I had a lot to learn, I had a lot of work to do, and I made a lot of mistakes. But today I have about a half an acre of lawn, and more of that's going away as we speak. I have someone out in my garden right now digging up. I actually just take out the lawn, and that's going to be more native plants.
Hannah, can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yeah.
Sorry. I know that I can see from the shared screen your notes on the side. So I think if you're able to change it so that we can only see like your actual slide presentation.
Oh, I have no idea how to do that.
I think maybe if you just put like slideshow.
I thought that was what I did. Let me stop the share for a minute.
No problem. Because when we were practicing earlier, I couldn't see the notes.
You couldn't?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I try it again. You can still see them. Now you can't see me, I guess.
Well, I can just see you because I think you stopped sharing your screen.
Oh, great.
Sorry. Technology.
Yeah.
Hard.
Now I don't see the share or the unshare. Uh-oh. I lost my share. I lost my unshare.
So
Can you hear me?
I can see and hear you. So maybe if you might have to reopen that power.
Okay, I got back out. Oh, does anybody out there know how to not show the notes? I had no idea.
Well, when we were doing it before, it wasn't showing. So
Are
whatever.
you sure?
Yep.
Because I didn't do anything different.
Well, it's not the end of the world if we see the notes.
Well, I don't know how to get rid of the notes completely. I can do it without the notes, probably.
You can just do it with the notes showing. That's okay.
Okay, but yeah. Bummer. Okay, no one's going to do everything I'm going to suggest. I don't do everything I'm going to suggest. So here's an example of a wildlife-friendly garden. It's not my garden. My garden's a lot different from this, but it is pretty wildlife-friendly, a lot of different kinds of flowers.
Okay.
We don't know anything more. What was that?
We can't see any. I just see you. You're not sharing your screen. If you can show your presentation so we can see the slides,
Well,
if you're able to.
let me see.
Sorry, everyone, that sometimes the technology with the Zoom is tricky.
Yeah, now I'm not even seeing which one is. There it is. Okay.
Yay.
Oh, now I don't see it.
There it is. And
You
then,
see it?
yep. And then if you want to hit like a slideshow or from the beginning on the left, yeah, then I think we can see everything. Yep,
There.
perfect. We're good.
Okay, so ignore my notes. So this again is an example of a pretty wildlife friendly garden. There's a lot more than that what we see here though that's necessary. So the first thing is, what is wildlife? And traditionally wildlife referred to pretty much undomesticated vertebrates. But now we're more likely to think of, or some of us are more likely to think about plants as part of wildlife. We're more likely to think about insects as part of wildlife. Plants are the only thing that can take sunlight and make it into energy, and all life is based on plants. Even carnivores depend on plants because they're eating animals that depended on plants. So it would be wild things that are in an area without being introduced by humans. So some examples of wildlife are the plants, the basis of all other life. Insects, 97% of all insects are either beneficial or neutral. People often, especially gardeners, think of insects as being horrible things, but only a few of them are a problem. We have the pollinators, the honeybees, which are not native. Not everybody realizes that honeybees are not native to the Western Hemisphere. Our native bees, there are about 50 different species in Pennsylvania, and they're all pretty much in trouble. And part of what we're going to talk about today is going to help those bees. Wasps, flies, and beetles, they're all pollinators, not all of them, but a lot of them are. And then butterflies and moths. There are the predators of those invertebrates. Those are what we call beneficial insects. They're insects that eat the insects that we don't like. And then the insects are food for many other animals, especially birds. And some people, there are people on Earth that their primary protein source is insects, and insects are disappearing. Other examples of wildlife are birds. I think everybody here is thinking about birds as one of the things they want to encourage. But we also have amphibians. We want to encourage them, reptiles, People hate snakes. Snakes are going to eat those voles that are eating your roots of your plants and your bulbs. And then then the mammals, I'll talk a little bit about bats individually near the end, but we also have the opossums, groundhogs, skunks, raccoons. I just put cameras in. I put 4 cameras in, and what I found out was that the deer have conventions in my yard at night, which is pretty cool. One of the plants that was here when I moved in were hostas, and I keep the hostas because the deer like to eat the hostas and they can have them. So the other mammals. Now we're going to mainly talk about the birds and the insects, the pollinators and the butterflies. I had to put this in. People have bad feelings about opossums, and I love this. Then after I killed all the ticks, mice, and snakes in her backyard, she had the nerve to ask if I have rabies. And I said, lady, you're more likely to have rabies than I am. I don't know if you know this, but opossums almost never have rabies. Their body temperature is too low. The rabies virus can't survive. And they also eat hundreds of ticks every day. So what does wildlife need to survive and thrive? The food, water, shelter, and a place to raise their young. Those are the things that wildlife needs. And so we'll talk about each of those subjects. Another kind of nice yard. This also is not my yard. This is also not my yard, but I thought this was a great picture. This is elderberries. I do have plenty of elderberries, but these are not my elderberries. So the first thing is the food. And for the food for wildlife, you want to plant mostly natives, not necessarily all natives. In fact, not all natives. There are no native annuals, for instance, not here anyway. There are some native annuals in California and Texas, places like that, but we don't really have any native annuals. So any annuals are going to be non-natives. And and not all non-natives are invasive. We'll talk about invasive. Not all non-natives are a problem. You want to plant mainly plants that survive food. So you want to plant plants that have nuts, berries, seeds, and insects for the birds. And I'm showing a website here, this Audubon website. And I will, if you send me an email, and I will repeat, my email was on the first slide, but I'll repeat my email at the end. I can send you a list of all of these websites. This particular one, the Audubon one, gives you by zip code the native plants for birds, and it tells you a description of the plant, the name of the plant, of course, picture of the plant, and which birds that particular plant supports. We have the pollinators. That for the pollinators, the food you need are plants that supply nectar for the adults and pollen for their young. This website gives you what the pollinator plants are for the Mid-Atlantic region, which is what we're concerned with. For the butterflies and moths, you need the plants that supply nectar for the adults and the host plants for their babies. Most butterflies and moths are what we call specialists. Their babies, which are their caterpillars, when you look at caterpillars and you think, oh, I have to get rid of them, they're eating my plants. Well, they're what are going to feed your birds. If you kill the caterpillars, the birds aren't going to have anything to feed their babies. A chickadee, or most of the birds, do feed caterpillars mainly to their babies. And studies have shown that one brood of like chickadees have to feed their babies over 4,000. I've seen even as high as 8,000 caterpillars. So don't get rid of your caterpillars. Have host plants for those caterpillars. And what most people know, the monarch's host plant is milkweed, but all of them or most of them have their particular plants that they use. This website will give you the host plants for different caterpillars and moths. About bird feeders, do we have to feed the birds? Well, most of our bird feeding is for our own entertainment. They can survive without what we feed them, but studies have shown that birds that are fed during the breeding season are more likely to have babies that survive. But your whole garden should be a bird feeder. And if you're going to have bird feeders, you want to feed a variety of foods. You want to keep them clean. You want to try to be consistent. If you miss a couple days, again, they don't need our bird feeders, but it helps. And there is that subject, though, of your squirrels getting all the food. And I do have two pictures. These are feeders I have. The one on the left is a bird feeder that when a squirrel jumps on those perches, the whole thing drops and they can't eat. They just can't get the food. Now, I inadvertently got a picture back here. Do you see this in the back? That's actually alpaca shavings. Yesterday, I saw a titmouse grabbing some of that fur, so they're starting to build their nests. It's for nesting. The one on the right, this baffle, it's the long, thin one, and having your bird feeder at least 10 feet away from any place squirrels can jump from. They cannot get on this feeder. I've had this particular feeder for years. They have never gotten on it. I thought they did one time, so I added this baffle, but it turned out, I don't know what happened, but maybe a bear came through. I doubt it. But anyway, this is the baffle you need, and 10 feet away from everything. And I can guarantee you, squirrels are not going to get your food. I am putting another whole system like this in, and then I'm going to have fewer things on each one. It's not really good to have this much in one place because they get diseases just like we do. Now, if you notice in the back here, you can see a lot of stems. We'll talk about that later. That's another very important thing. You don't want to cut them down in the fall like we normally did. Okay, for water, that water is for drinking, bathing, and cooling off. If you can have a pond, that's great. If you want dragonflies, though, don't have fish. They eat the larvae of the dragonflies. I actually have 2 ponds now, one with fish and one without fish. Don't have dragonflies yet. That's been 2 years. I still don't have dragonflies, but I saw 3 frogs in it yesterday. Bird baths, I actually have 6 bird baths. Moving water is best. I use a little solar powered spray. That works. They only last about a year, but the birds seem to like that. There are other things you can get. There are things called wigglers that are battery operated that makes the water move. If the water doesn't move, they'll still use it, but they like it better if it does. Keeping it clean, you want to scrub and change the water at least once a week. If you do it once a week, you don't have to worry about mosquitoes because the life cycle on those mosquitoes is actually longer than a week. And you want to use 1 part bleach and 9 parts water and rinse well. You don't want to be giving them Clorox water. And you want to try to keep it thawed in the winter. I don't run anything electric to do that, but what I do is every morning when it's frozen, I go out and add some water. They can eat snow, but if there's no snow, they have a tough time getting water. And then a mud puddle is good. That's not actually water, but butterflies especially really like those mud puddles, probably to get the minerals from the mud. And in addition to mud, they kind of like dung. And I have a horse, so I don't have my mud puddle yet. That's going to go in the next week. I'm going to add some horse poop, and they like that. Shelter, that shelter is to keep them warm out of bad weather and away from predators. Nest boxes, a lot of the birds will use those nest boxes in the winter, and I put pine needles in to give them a little bit of insulation. Brush piles are important if you have enough land, and even if all you have is enough to have a window box with some good flowers in, that's what you have. But if you have the room, brush piles are good. They can hide from predators and they can stay warm, and that's going to be rodents as well as insects. Shrubs, I see those birds now. I remember I said my feeder's 10 feet away, but I see those birds hightail it for the shrubs that I have whenever a predator comes along. Every now and then I'll see a hawk. It's been years since I saw a hawk get a bird, but I did see a hawk just about 2 weeks ago on my deck. Bare ground for native bees, that gives them shelter. Most of our native bees actually live in the ground. And then leaves or litter on the ground. Let's take butterflies. Most butterflies don't migrate. The monarchs do, a couple others do, but most of the butterflies don't migrate. They actually live over the winter in leaves and litter on the ground. Some of them do that as eggs. Some of them do it as pupa, and some of them do it as adults. But if you rake up those leaves and you throw those leaves out on the curb, you just got rid of food for many baby birds the next year. And the leaves are the best litter you can, not litter, the best mulch you can get too. It's free, and it is just great mulch. Place to raise their young. A lot of these are the same as the shelter, the nest boxes. The only birds that'll use the nest boxes are the birds that normally would live in holes in trees. And because we cut down all the dead trees now, nest boxes are where they can live. And that includes owls, woodpeckers. So the next thing then is leave those dead trees standing if you can. If it's safe to let them stand, let them stand. I at the moment have many dead trees on my property because of this Douglas firs that are all dying. Shrubs and trees, most of the birds don't use nest boxes. They'll build their nests in shrubs and trees. And in some of them actually will put their nests right on the ground too. Again, the bare ground for the native bees so that they can have their place. Dead stems over the winter, I talked about that a little bit already. You want to let those dead stems up. This is a little more complicated than I thought it was, and I'm still kind of studying it. Doug Tallamy says, let 2 feet up. So I'm thinking I trust him. We'll talk a little bit more about him later, but right now I let them up, and then I've decided in May, I'm going to cut them down to about 2 feet. Right away, plants will be growing up and covering them. The dead stems that I do take down, the parts that I take down, actually, I wait until it gets pretty warm to make sure no babies are in those stems anymore. And that's the reason, because a lot of the insects lay their eggs in the stems. I will mulch them up, and I use them for my pads. Leaves on the ground, we talked about that before for many of the insects. The host plants for the butterflies and moths. That's where butterflies and moths raise their young. They don't raise them, they leave, but the babies need those host plants. And then there are also mason bee houses that you can put up. And I have a picture of a mason bee house. If you know anything about these, you can see I'm not very successful, because if mason bees had actually used these would be closed off, because they lay an egg and then they put some mud and then another egg and some mud. And in the end there, you would see the mud. I know a lot of people who are successful though with the mason bee houses. I don't know what they don't like about mine. Okay, some other specific birdhouse suggestions. You want to make sure you can clean it out. So you need a hinged roof or a side so you can easily clean it. You want to remove or omit a perches. You don't want to, they don't need perches, and they actually encourage pest birds. That translates to house sparrows. They are not native to the United States. And they do displace our native birds, particularly the bluebirds. Any of the bird houses, you want to make sure you have some holes in the bottom, so if any water gets in, it can drain out. You want to keep them apart because they do have their territories and they will fight over space. I'll show you a picture of this little sunroom, but the owner of Wild Birds Unlimited found out that if you have like a little sunroof, I said sunroom, I meant to say sunroof there, it will discourage the house sparrows, at least for a while. You want to provide some sort of guard on the hole. I'll show you a picture of that. And you want to find a way to make sure nobody can make those holes bigger, because like a bluebird wants a very specific size hole. I think it's 1.25 inches. I'd have to look it up. Well, you'll have somebody come along like a squirrel and chew away and make it bigger. So if you put like metal the size of the hole, and you can actually buy them, over it, then the squirrels can't make it bigger. Now here, this on the left, that is the guard. I saw at Middle Creek, every one of their bluebird houses has a guard on it now. It's deep, and so things like cats, raccoons can't put their little arms in there and grab the babies, which they will do. And if you notice, there's little sharp edges. That keeps the snakes off, because the snakes really don't want to crawl over those sharp edges. At least that's what we hope. This particular bluebird house was really a problem for me. My bluebirds, they come in the winter, they eat all my food all winter, and they don't like my yard because it's not open enough. I have too many plants in it for the bluebirds. And so they leave. Well, last year they didn't leave. They were in this particular house. And here I didn't realize the roof on it had deteriorated. And I think it was a raccoon must have come lift. I had the guard on, but it was able to lift that roof up, and the babies were gone. So if you notice here, there is a latch on it now. So I'm making sure they all have latches where they open. The one on this side shows the sunroof. You can't really see it. This isn't the right hole for a bluebird, but somebody goes in it. I think it's wrens are usually in there. But because you can see that light, it shows that there is a sunroof, and house sparrows don't like that. So that may keep them off. Okay, so what is causing that wildlife loss? There are many, many, many things, but the three really big ones are habitat loss, invasive species, both plants and animals, and our addiction to pesticide and herbicide use. Habitat loss, that occurs when humans convert natural places for human use for croplands, urban areas, infrastructure, roads, dams, power lines, and so forth. But think about this, it also is habitat loss when property owners pave or cover their natural areas with lawn. Invasive plants, the reason they're invasive, and this is true for plants, and part of this is true for both plants and animals, they're prolific seeders, they're vigorous growers, and they have few predators. By definition, an invasive plant is a non-native plant. By definition, a native plant can't be invasive, it's aggressive, can be aggressive. So some of the invasive plants are listed here. These are plants, I'll bet anyone who has a fairly large yard has some of them. I was pulling garlic mustard yesterday, An interesting thing about two interesting things about the garlic mustard are the fact that they are, the word is allelopathic, and it means they actually put out chemicals that keep other plants from growing near them. So not only do they take up space, they actually keep other plants from growing. It is edible. I tasted it yesterday. I certainly wouldn't be very interested in eating it as a regular meal. I do like some plants, but that one I did not like. And what the heck's the third thing about? Oh, they can, if you pull those as weeds after they've flowered, even after they've flowered, you pull them, those flowers will still go to seed. They're really nasty. Bradford pears, Bradford pears are taken over in the spring when they're blooming. They are everywhere. They give nothing to wildlife, nothing. They're just like a desert. Butterfly bushes, everybody loves their butterfly bushes. I thought they were great. I didn't believe they were invasive. And then after about 10 years, I started finding baby butterfly bushes all over my property. I did get rid of my butterfly bushes. They feed butterflies, but so do 1,000 other things, but they do nothing for babies. Heavenly bamboo, the Nandina, that's a really big problem because at a certain time of the year, they could kill a whole flock of waxwings, and it has happened. Those it's late in the year. I guess they're what berries they get. I don't have any. They get berries, I believe. Late in the year, they will kill a flock because they become poisonous. So if you have heavenly bamboo and you have to keep it, cut those berries off. Now, these are not the only ones. There are many more. And at the end, I have a website for the Pennsylvania invasive plant list, and it includes 17 trees, 14 shrubs, 12 vines, 14 grasses, 27 herbaceous perennials, and 11 aquatic plants. So there are a lot of natives, and they're all legal to sell. Pennsylvania doesn't make it illegal. I don't think Pennsylvania makes any of them illegal to sell. They all take up space. They all remove habitat. Now, the invasive animals, so we have plenty of them. Spotted lanternfly, we're all pretty up on right now. What happens with them is they come from another country, and they don't have any predators. Things that evolved together, learned to eat each other. Well, they didn't evolve here. And so our birds typically won't eat them, although after time they may. The brown marmorated stink bugs, we think one of the reasons they are not the problem they were a couple of years ago is because birds did start eating them. The spotted lanternfly, a few things eat them, but not many. I think somebody said they saw a catbird barf one up. That's not a good sign. So they're all a problem. The emerald ash borer, I mean, they're killing. I don't think any trees are resistant to the emerald ash borer or the woolly adelgid. That's hitting the hemlocks. And then another invasive animal is the common house cat. It is not a native animal, and they kill at least 1 billion birds a year. I've seen as many as 4 billion listed, and other wildlife. They kill anything that moves. It's their instinct. It's not, I mean, people often say, well, I feed my cat. Well, they won't kill things. They don't kill to eat. They kill because it's their instinct. The other side of that whole thing is you keep your cat in and they're not, I mean, just the other day in my neighborhood app, you know, we have an app that we talk to each other. Somebody's kitten got run over by a car. Well, it doesn't get run over by a car if it's not outside. People say, but they want to go out. They're happy out. Well, your kid would be happy playing in the street, probably, but you don't want to do that. Free-ranging cats have a shorter life expectancy. Please keep your cats in. So the last thing of those three are the pesticide use. This applies to pesticides, herbicides, miticides, everything. And IPM, called Integrated Pest Management, is a system where you want to use the least destructive control methods. And then you really want to think, is there any reason to do anything? Do you have to do anything? Okay, somebody's eating your leaves. That means it's food for somebody. But you know, they're not probably going to kill your plants. We said already, emerald ash borer will, woolly adelgid will, but most things are not going to kill your plant. If you have milkweed, you're going to have aphids. So what? They're not going to kill your milkweed. So the whole idea of the integrated pest management is don't do anything if you don't have to. And if you do have to do anything, use the least destructive control method. So the first level on that is the cultural and sanitation. And that's things like keep your plants healthy, buy healthy plants, use clean tools. And here is the first time I've actually had a look at my notes, and I do on this. If cultivars, we didn't talk about cultivars, but they're plants that were selectively bred to be able to withstand certain insects, certain diseases, to be able to survive a little better. Get them if it's necessary. Plant the plant in the right place. I was on the hort desk at Master Gardeners, and if someone called up and they said they had, I think it's lace bugs on azaleas. First question is, are they planted in the sun? Yeah, they were planted in the sun. Azaleas don't belong in the sun. So that's part of the cultural. You put them where they belong. If that doesn't work, or it's too late for that, then you want to do the physical and mechanical things. And that's things like pulling weeds, picking insects off, making sure things are watered, putting up barriers, putting up traps. And I want to say one thing about the traps. Spotted lanternfly using the sticky traps is great, except you can catch squirrels, you can catch birds if you don't protect that. So when you put up those sticky traps, make sure, and I just use chicken wire, put it around the sticky. Now you're still going to get some insects you didn't want to get. That's bycatch. But you're not going to get birds. You're not going to get bats. You're not going to get squirrels. The next level up, okay, now physical mechanical isn't practical or it didn't work. You want to go to biological controls. And that's things like encouraging predatory insects. That's like bringing, and this is usually done not by the individuals. I mean, people buy praying mantis nests. Well, they're not going to necessarily stay on your property. And besides that, they are not native and they eat hummingbirds even. So the biological controls would be things like using BT is, I can't even say it, but it kills caterpillars. And that's all it'll kill, caterpillars. Oh, don'ts would be a biological control. They only kill mosquito larvae. The last resort is the pesticides, herbicides, miticides. Anything with side in it means kill. And they will kill the good and the bad. More and more evidence says that it's hurting humans. So use pesticides, herbicides, any of the sides as little as you possibly can. I recently had my hemlock tree treated for woolly adelgid. The person that I had do it, I really trust. He said that it's not going to hurt anything else. I hope he was right. Okay, so how can we reverse the loss? Number one, plant native plants. I bet you could have guessed that. And that's all kinds of native plants. Remove the invasive plants, minimize the use of pesticides, herbicides. Those are the three, things we just talked about. You want to minimize the hardscape in your yard. I've heard people say they were going to pave where they have grass because they don't want to cut the grass. Well, get rid of the grass, minimize the lawn on your property, plant things that feed animals. And continued on that, bird window strikes. I have a sunroom, and I used to hear a lot of bird window strikes. I built that sunroom. That's one of the mistakes I made. Although I'm not sorry I have it, because I did find a way around it. Birds look at windows and it looks as if they can fly through them. So you have to do something to break that up. You can get things, there are dots you can put on the windows. And those dots, I have not done that yet. I'm thinking about it. Those dots, if you look out the window, you don't even notice them. But when the birds see them, they know they can't fly through there. They're dots. People hang up strings, decals. I've been told that I have to be wrong about this. I don't think I'm wrong. I hung CDs all over my windows in the flashy part of the CD, all over my windows. I haven't had a bird strike that I heard since I put them up. I sit in that sunroom to count birds, to just eat my breakfast, whatever. I've seen the birds fly toward the window and veer off. I haven't seen a bird strike since those CDs. You want to minimize your outdoor lighting. That's particularly a problem for moths, and moths are good food for birds. And did you ever see, well, the hummingbird moth isn't really active at night, but they're so cool. So you want to minimize that lighting. And I just read that having amber lighting instead of white lighting is going to keep the moths from, what they do is they just fly around until they drop dead. And meanwhile, nobody's going to eat them because they're going to be laying on the ground dead. Outdoor lighting, by the way, indoor lighting too. Today is it's not Earth Day. What's it called? Lights Out. It's called something like that. From 8:30 to 9:30 tonight, as a show of support for the migrating birds, turn your lights off in your house. Those lights really confuse the birds. You want to use grass clippings for mulch, or just let them lay. If you let them lay, that's fertilizer. That's less fertilizer that you have to buy. They're not going to cause thatch. Grass clippings don't cause thatch. Or, so let them lay is the best thing. Compost your waste. And then there are these things like minimizing your use of plastics, especially single use, minimize your carbon footprint. We're expecting, or not we, they are expecting about 1/3 of the birds to go away because of climate change. And every little thing you can do helps. What we should not do is use the sides unless necessary, unless, really think about it. Do I have to kill these things? And then, if you do have to use it, you can use things like insecticidal soap, horticultural oil. They'll kill everything also, but it has to actually be on them. You want to don't rake your leaves. Let them lay when possible. And if you can't let them lay, use them for mulch. And I use leaves for all of my mulch. I don't buy any mulch anymore. I used to buy like tons of it, none anymore. And then I talked about this before. Don't cut back your stems on your perennials in the fall. You want to wait until at least 5 days straight of 50 degrees. Another thing I heard is wait till you see butterflies. And when you do cut it back, let about 2 feet stand, and then that'll also help hold things up. So this is like a few more things. Some of this is repetitious, but be more tolerant. Just, look at leaves that are chewed and think, hey, that's great. You're feeding somebody. Insects, they're not horrible things. Snakes, they're good. You don't want to play with them, but they're good. You want to keep flowers blooming from early spring until late fall. And one of those websites actually breaks the flowers down by when exactly they're blooming. If you have a gap in there that you don't have any flowers, your insects, your pollinators don't have anything to eat during that gap. You want to plant in masses for birds, especially as they're flying over, they see what's below them. And if you have one plant of something they like, they're not even going to notice it. But if you have a lot of them, they will. Deadheading, you don't want to be doing deadheading. I watch my birds eating constantly off of things like the cone flowers. I see them. I didn't realize that they actually ate the bee balm seeds, but I see them eating seeds on the bee balm. When you deadhead those seeds, they're gone. They're not available to those birds. The bare patch for the native bees again, leaves and grass clippings for mulch. Make a meadow. Boy, that's a big job. I look at my lawn and my yard and I think, boy, I really want a meadow, but that is a huge job. And you really need to know a lot to do it. But if you can do it and then have a smaller lawn, mow less. People want their lawn to be 2 inches. That's beautiful, right? Well, that's not even healthy for the lawn. 3.5 to 4 inches is better. And then finally, take the time to enjoy your garden and learn to meet the inhabitants. Go out at night with a flashlight. It's fascinating. My daughter got me doing that. Go out and see what's happening at night in your yard. Now, especially for the bats, this is primarily bats, although keeping dead trees, that's good for everybody, as long as they're not a threat to people or property. Plant night blooming flowers. That'll attract insects, which the bats will eat. Add a water source. Again, it attracts insects and the bats can drink. If you install a bat house, I have 2 bat houses. I've never had a bat in them. I've had them up for 20 years, but they're not right. I read what they should be with the Bat Conservation Institute, that's BCI. I read that and I laugh because my bat houses are nothing like that. They're what somebody thought a bat house should be 20 years ago. If you have a bat house, put it where it won't get under 80 or over 100 degrees in the summer. They're only here in the summer. At least 15 feet off the ground. That's tough for a lot of people. And you have to put it up between spring and early summer. If you're later than early summer, they're not going to find it. And again, same old thing, avoid all chemicals unless absolutely necessary. You spray insects, they have that poison on them. Even if it doesn't kill them right away, they're flying around, the bat eats them, that builds up, it kills the bat. Same thing's true of a lot of the birds, of course. Okay, here are the suggested websites. And again, my email address, send me an email and I'll send you copies of these websites. In the questions here, if anybody wants to look at what any of these are, let me know and I can pull them up. But the one is general of why native plants. It's very complicated, but very simple. And this explains it very well. The native plants by birds, for birds by your zip code, the pollinator plants of the Mid-Atlantic region, list of host plants for butterflies and moths, that Pennsylvania invasive plants fact sheets, that's what I talked about, that had all those listings, plants that attract hummingbirds, and then general gardening wildlife information. These websites are wonderful. Some suggested books. I mentioned Doug Tallamy. Anybody here who hasn't heard of him, he's kind of our guru. He wrote Bringing Nature Home. I know 2 different people who didn't really seem to care a whole lot about natives and wildlife, and they both became very, very much interested in it. And I asked them what happened, and they both said Bringing Nature Home. They read it. And then his latest book is Nature's Best Hope. And that's the whole idea of everybody's yard can be an at-home national park is what they call it. And if enough people would do that, it would make up for a lot of the damage that's been done to the habitats. And then this last book, this In Defense of Plants, this is a webinar I listened to. It's called In Defense of Plants, and now he wrote this book, and it's just great information. Not, it's about plants in general. Some suggested sources, and I just got these. I just did Native Plants Pennsylvania, and this is what came up. I did the ones close to us. Edge of the Woods Native Plant Nursery, that's in Orfield, Pennsylvania. I do go there quite a bit. Keystone Wildflowers is in Robizonia. Now with him, you do need to call for an appointment. He's having a sale coming up here. If you're interested, just Google Keystone Wildflowers. I buy a lot from him. The Redbud Native Plant Nursery, Northeast Perennials, and Go Native Tree. Oh, I have been to Go Native Tree Farm too. I don't know if you can even see that. I'm sorry, that's down pretty far. There are all places you can get native plants also. Oh, and Black Creek, they have some. One thing you have to be a little concerned about is the cultivars. A cultivar is a human-made sort of people. It's like selective breeding in animals. People have cultivars often just so that they're more disease resistant, but often it's also to change the shape and or the color. If the shape or the color of the plant is closed, it may not be as good as it was in the straight species, we call it form. There are some cultivars that studies have shown the insects actually preferred. Some examples like purple dome asters. At one of the native plant conferences, they said, insects just don't bother with them. They're not interested. So you have to be careful when you're buying something that's not, like if you go to the Edge of the Woods or Keystone Wildflowers, and probably any of the ones that actually say native, I think you can pretty much trust that they have not lost their appeal because of breeding. Aspen Shades also has a native section now, and I bought a couple things from them. Some more suggested sources: Mount Cuba Center in Delaware, Jenkins Arboretum. In Devon, I'm a member there and I go there frequently. I absolutely love the place. Haven't been there since COVID started, but I am going down on April 23rd for their plant sale. They have really good prices. And then Hawk Mountain has a spring and a fall native plant sale. I love their sales. We believe May 15th and 16th, but check that website. I thought I saw it was canceled, but Jamie doesn't think it is. So just take a look at that website. Now, this is my garden. The one on the left, and I apologize for the fact that they're blurry. They're not blurry on my cell phone, but they are blurry here. So think impressionistic pictures. The one on the left was taken on May 2nd of some year. And there's not a whole lot blooming then. The native pollinators aren't out yet. And I bet that's because of the way they evolved with the native plants that aren't really out yet. Although I just did hear last night that some people have bloodroot blooming. I lost my bloodroot. Don't have a lot of luck with bloodroot, but there is some blooming. My wood poppies, this is a wood poppy back here. My wood poppies are up. So I'll bet you within the next week, they'll be blooming. The one on the right, that was on July the 5th, masses, a lot of color, a lot of variety. The one on the left here, that was on August the 14th. This is Culver's root. That's a good pollinator plant. Here's bee balm. A lot of people don't like bee balm. They think it takes over. It sort of does. I don't care. I have 6 different species. I love them. They're great for hummingbirds, great pollinator plants. On the right is August the 30th. This is, if you don't know what Joe Pye weed is, this is Joe Pye weed. It is my #1 favorite plant, and I probably have 1,000 of them now in the yard. And they come out #1. Certain species of them come out #1 for pollinators. They are covered with butterflies whenever they're out. Back here we have some Coreopsis. This looks like cone flowers, so they're all good natives. This one on the left is, now that's in September. Things are starting to, settle down a bit. By the way, this whole section here is no longer lawn. That's been replaced by more plants. Again, Joe Pye weed. I forget what this is. Oh, this is, I'm pretty sure that's goldenrod blooming there. And then on the right, that's July 14th. This right here is my really tall Joe Pye weed. I always say I have them from 1 foot tall, and that's because they're in places they don't have enough room to really grow, to 12 feet tall, all blooming. And this is a panorama, Joe Pye weed, Joe Pye weed, Joe. This is, I think, in late August, and I'm not seeing, this is all goldenrod usually. I'm not seeing that blooming yet. Looks like that could be goldenrod. This is a hawthorn tree I just put in last year. Not 2019, that tree went in. So thank you for wanting to share your garden with wildlife. And are there any questions?
Yes, Hannah, thank you. That was such a lovely presentation. And you're clearly so passionate on this very important subject.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. So if there are any questions, as Hannah said, definitely type them in now. Don't see any yet.
Oh, that's a bummer.
I think because your talk was so informative. And also too, Hannah, if you email me like those
websites.
Yeah, then I can send it out.
Oh, you'll send them out. Okay, good.
Send it out to everyone real easily through TicketLeaf. So I'll be happy to share those resources.
Okay, good. That's good.
Oh,
but anyone who wants to email questions, I'm perfectly happy. My email is down at the bottom of this slide too. I don't know if you can actually see it.
Yeah, we can see it. It looks great. Okay, so we do have a question that comes in. Hannah, do you chop or shred your leaves for mulch?
I did chop. I had a shredder and I did it until last year. And then I realized I'm chopping up all those babies. So no, I don't chop them anymore. What I do use that shredder for, and this is kind of under the cultural, I do have a Cornus Florida, my brain, you see, I don't know many Latin names, but sometimes I forgot the common name. Cornus Florida. Oh my God, my brain just went blank. Spring flower. Comes in white and pink. Anyway, it gets anthracnose every year, and now I'm using that to pick up the anthracnose leaves, and it's better than it would have been if I wouldn't have picked those leaves up. So that's part cultural. Yeah.
Someone was saying, I think maybe Jan was saying, were you talking about flowering dogwood?
Of course I am.
Thank you, Jan.
I just lost dogwood.
Yeah, it was right at the tip of your tongue. Okay, we have another question, Hannah. Do you get any bear, and what do you do to prevent them from taking your bird feeders?
I do. You know what? I had a comment I had a comment in here I probably didn't say, because I really didn't use the notes except for like a few things that were numbers. I had a comment, but I really don't want bears. No, I don't have bears, and pretty much from what I understand, you just have to take them in. And I do have one feeder. Oh, I forgot to say this, that feeder that the squirrels, they can't eat. The raccoons figured out how to go up on the banister, grab the feeder, pull it over, get the food. So I bring that one in at night.
Yeah, animals are crafty. We do that at Hawk Mountain. You know, a lot of guests enjoy watching the birds at our feeders that are placed outside our visitor center. And, you know, when it's not winter, we bring those feeders in every night.
Because of bear.
Yes, because of bear.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you're not gonna. I've heard of feeder setups like I have with that heavy metal. I've heard of the bears just pulling them right down. That thing's cemented into the ground, and I bet a bear could do that. There was a bear reported in my neighborhood right after I moved in, but not that I've ever seen.
Okay, wonderful. And by the way, Hannah, I want to just walk around your property. It looks so lovely.
Anybody can come anytime. I would love to show my property to people, and nobody comes, especially not now.
Well, yeah, hopefully.
I've been trying to get Jan to come for years.
Come on, Jan, we know you're out there listening. So Hannah, I think that's all our questions for now. And I will email everyone the wonderful resources and all the links that Hannah shared. Let's see. Oh, Jan is saying soon. She'll come. She'll come. So
hey, we're both almost I think she is 2 weeks out on her vaccinations. Still wearing masks though.
Masking up. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, Hannah, thank you so much. Your passion and your energy, it's just contagious. And I can't wait to do some native plant shopping and planting them at my own personal property.
Oh, it's just great.
Yeah, and we hope to see everyone at Hawk Mountain, our spring native plant sale, the 15th and 16th of May.
Okay.
But again, as Hannah said, always check our website. And compliments are coming in saying, thank you, Hannah, great job. Thank you to our audience for joining us. We always appreciate it. And come visit us at Hawk Mountain. You know, I have to end the webinar by talking about upcoming events. We're so excited because spring migration starts at Hawk Mountain next weekend. Well, April 1st, but next weekend is when we start all of our free weekend programmings for our guests throughout the weekend. Raptors up close, Hawk Mountain history, name that raptor, trapping and tracking. So come visit. We have some other wonderful events going on. We have our Adirondack pack basket weaving workshop the weekend of April 10th and 11th. We do have just a few little spots available on Sunday only, but our regular spots have sold out for this Saturday, but please contact us if you're interested in doing a one-day basket for Sunday only. We have a stay-at-home speaker series webinar coming up with our former Peruvian conservation science trainee, Sandra Quadros, overwintering in neotropics, landscape configuration, and threats of the broad-winged hawk, April 15th, 7 p.m. We have our next Discovery Institute program. It's also virtual with Penn State Extension. It is You Can Compost, and that's April 18th at 2 p.m. We have our April homeschool happenings, Herps Awaken on April 21st at 10 a.m. Sanctuary Story Time, Forest Bright, Forest Night on April 22nd at 11. And of course, Earth Day. We have Earth Day celebration at 2 p.m. on the 22nd. And we're also celebrating Earth Day with Hawk Mountain Virtual Trivia, which is the evening of the 22nd at 7 p.m. And the last Sunday of every month, we have Yoga on the Mountain. So that would be April 25th, and that's 9 a.m. And then our last Discovery Institute program for April is Rain Barrel Virtual Workshop on the 29th at 7 p.m. So lots of good things going on.
Use rain barrels. I missed that. Of course, you have to have rain barrels.
Yes. And we do have a question coming in about our native plant sale at Hawk Mountain. Will it be accessible for people using wheelchairs? And the answer is yes. It is going to be kind of in our event area, which is it's sometimes the parking lot area, but it's kind of right before you get to our amphitheater amphitheater. And we do have an ADA accessible trail kind of connecting the amphitheater all the way down to South Lookout. So absolutely. So come on out. So thank you again, everyone. Hannah, thank you. You're amazing. And we hope to see everyone soon at Hawk Mountain. And
And thank you to everyone for wanting to help wildlife.
Yes, it's so.
You're helping yourself when you help wildlife.
That is so true. It is so true. Well, everyone, bye for now and have a wonderful weekend. Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.